of move into this a little bit. And you have the first blank there, which is perspective. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about perspective. I think sometimes we move, and I was thinking that maybe I do, I kind of move these little things or the conflicts or opposition into the category of persecution. Not to say that I couldn't get there, but I wanted to bring a little bit of perspective into what we're talking about. This is a book, The Global War on Christians. It's statistical mostly, and different countries, some stories about things that have happened, but these are some general kind of numbers. He says in here, they're talking about the scholar Todd Johnson and the Theological Seminary, an expert on religious demography. Somebody say that for me.
Demographic?
Yes, demographics. Has pegged the number of Christians killed per year from 2000 to 2010 at 100,000. That works out to 11 Christians killed every hour, every day throughout the past decade. Some experts question that number, but even the low-end estimate puts the number of Christians killed every day on a basis of religious hatred at 20, almost 1 per hour. Wow. On the low end.
Wow.
I don't even know if I recommend reading it. I mean, I think that when we can have, again, perspective in the world that we live in, because what's happening is we're being so misled in the things that are happening now, and we're being played with on a level that's like, if the magician, if you keep your attention over here, then you won't see what's happening over here. Because we live in, we have everything. We have everything so much that we can argue about having everything. We argue, in these conflicts that keep us away from Christ. Well, here's another story. It's a little graphic, but it's something that happened. So this was in one of the, I think this was in India, that a Catholic nun, Meena Barwa, was raped during the mayhem that had happened when these people came in to pillage these people, these Christians. They marched her naked through the streets and they beat her. Police, sympathetic to the radicals, discouraged the nun from filing a report and declined to arrest her attackers. These are, I think, one story after the next. I mean, you can only imagine that these things are happening. And it's not only their lives or their children's lives, but these are people who, for the sake of the gospel, see a whole different reality than we do. And they live in that reality, a correct reality, right? Where heaven is and where we're going is home. So I said last night at Bible study that we're almost home. That new song by Mercy Me, if you guys heard that. I love that song. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. This was just, let's see if I have one more. Let's see how depressed I can make you guys. Yeah, some of these are just, they're just pretty awful to listen to, but that's kind of, because it doesn't just affect you, it affects your family, it affects your children, it affects your parents.
Bethany, I wonder what those kinds of people that suffer that sort of thing think of things like the prosperity gospel. Or the name it, just if you pray hard, if you have enough faith, you'll get what you want, and yet those things, and God watches while that happens. So what would you do with that?
I don't know. I mean, I think when you look at like even those videos or you hear these stories, it makes you sick to your stomach to think about that this is what we do with the gospel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that we blame God for not intervening on those things instead of blaming ourselves and our sin for letting those things happen.
Right. Absolutely.
We don't even think that we're involved.
Right. Well, we're blind a lot of the times to what's happening. But this is kind of when this is for my first pointer. What expectations does the Bible give believers? So when we say we sign up for this, right, and God tells us that this is, I have no place to lay my head, and He tells me if it happened to me, it's going to happen to you. Somehow I think we've lost that in translation as Christians, that we don't really think it necessarily applies to us, and I think that's the devil and the world has completely exploited that to a place where we believe it. So the first one that I have is be sober and vigilant. I wanted to read, and this is a passage that we have heard, all the time. 1 Peter 5:8. It says, be sober and vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. You know, so yesterday I was telling Brandy, I looked it up online about lions hunting. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, these lions that are hunting. And you know what? I couldn't even put the two together, that that's what's happening on a spiritual level. That it's not just that he's looking to who he can devour. He wants to devour you in any way that he can. Us, our children. So if he's doing that, he wants to try to kill our character. He wants to try to kill our children's character, innocence, our love for one another, conflicts in the church. This is what he does. But how much do we believe that? How much do we believe that there's a lion roaming around trying to devour us, trying to kill us? And what do we do with that? We argue about the carpet in the church. When you think about it.
Defame each other.
Absolutely. I mean, so if this is what we're supposed to expect, and as I went down, I wanted, for my own self, I thought, do I know I signed up for this? And if I signed up for it, I can't complain about it. I need to do it. But why? Because we watched the video. Because he's worth it. He is everything. He is peace in a package. And we're in him, so we get that peace. So how do we get there? The thing is, it's like with our kids, or I tell my kids this anyway. I'm doing this for your own good. You don't even realize it. Because I was telling my daughter yesterday, there's a lion roaming around and he's trying to destroy you. He's trying to destroy everything about you, and he'll take any of it. Any piece that he can grab off your character, any piece that he can take off the person that you are for Jesus Christ, anything that he can do to diminish the God that made you, he's going to do it. I'm doing it for your good because I'm watching that lion. Okay, I'm trying to be vigilant. But so this is what I signed up for, to be vigilant, to be sober-minded. So the second one is to deny yourself daily. You know what's interesting about that verse? I think, and I do this a lot. I'm completely guilty of this. Is I say, and I mean it, that I try to take up my cross daily. Who can tell me what do you think take up your cross daily means? Okay. Can somebody give me an example of taking up your cross? I got waiting power. I've got a 6-year-old and a baby.
Putting others before yourself.
Okay. So this is an example. I was thinking about the fruits of the Spirit and thinking about taking up my cross daily. Lord, I'm gonna do it, and my heart means it. I want to do it. I want to do it. But then I read this verse and I'm like, you know what, snap, I think I forgot a whole portion of it that actually enables me to do it. And it's those words, deny yourself. How do I do any of those things without denying myself? And you know what, I'm not even very far in here in perspective and realize, I've got to deny myself and take up my cross. It's a 2-step process. That's how we get to where we're going. And so, when we're looking at these, we know in our expectation we're to be sober and vigilant. We're to deny ourselves daily and take up our cross. And we know this, he says right there in number 3, you're going to have trouble in the world, but peace in Christ. Once again, we know it. He says it. You're going to have trouble. Why do we have such a hard time with that? Our flesh, the world, everybody else that says that trouble is, we don't want any of those, but he says it, you will it. I had it and you're going to have it. But what? But peace in Christ. Have you guys felt that supernatural peace, especially at a time that's maybe awful or something you cannot control, but you feel that supernatural, that peace? The world doesn't have that. They don't have it. So these things that we're seeing now, it will keep and continue to get worse because they have no resource for peace. We do. And that's what we have through Jesus Christ. So I was thinking, it's not just a list of things we get to do. We get to do this because we get peace from him, supernaturally. And that's amazing. So we know that we'll have trouble in the world, but peace in him. And we also, the next one is God will be our comfort. So he doesn't leave us alone. And we think, wow, I have to go through all of this, and I have to do it for him, and I'm gonna grit my teeth and bear it, and I will deny myself and take out my cross. No, it's for our benefit, for the peace that he provides to us, because this is not the end, this isn't it. And that's, brings me to the last one, that this is not our home. And of course, yes,
The second part of that verse that you were just talking about.
Yes.
Says, who confronts us in our own affliction? Is that the right one?
is that,
1:4, 2 Corinthians
2 Corinthians 1:4?
So that we are able to comfort those in any affliction with the comfort which we ourselves are comforted with by God.
Amazing,
We can get comfort, peace,
right.
so that we can comfort others.
Absolutely. Do you find that? Do you find that people that if, have had troubles or issues, when they have a problem, they come to you, or they call you? And I have a particular friend, her name happens to be Bethany, and I think she's pretty cool. I've known her for a long time, I've known her since college, and she's had the same problems over and over and over and over and over and over to this day. It's the same thing. And it's very hard to stomach it and to stand it. And she knows a lot of that on my position is, girlfriend, you gotta, who is God to, who is God? Who are you in Him? You have to have, you're a conqueror, you can have victory over this. But ultimately, when she calls, she knows I'm a comfort. Because what do I say? He's the answer. There is peace in Him. So thank you for pointing that out. That is true, that He gives us, and that's supernatural. Those are supernatural things that He lets us be a gift to somebody else. Thank you for that. And then the next one is that this is not our home. Do you think that we believe that? I mean, I get it, right? It's like ethereal, and that this is not our home. We can sing about that. And maybe when you don't have somebody here, you can attach yourself more to that. My daughter's there, so I can attach myself more to going home, to being home. And I think that's a big problem, is we like it here. We like it here a lot. We like what it provides. I sit in my backyard. We have a lot. You know, our home is beautiful. My dad loves grass. My dad lives with me. My grass is nice. It's like some nice grass. We have the mountains in the back. You know, I have Laney's garden and the hummingbirds that buzz around. We have a lot. And do we really want to go home? I mean, I think that we say at the end, sure, let me live my life here and then I'll be ready to go home. To have such a love and to be with Him, not just for heaven, but to be with Christ, to be with Him. I long for that. And you know, at first, like my husband said, I long for heaven. I long to be with her again. But I'm longing to be with Him and to sit at His feet. And that's something that comes with realizing that not only is this world not our home, and if it's not our home, then we can start to stand for Christ, because we don't need to fit in anymore. Because it's not what we're meant to be.
No opposition.
No opposition, that's exactly right. Which brings me into our second point. Thank you, Sue. No, it's very great, very good. How does opposition affect a believer? Now, these next two steps are things that I've been thinking about. I don't want to say that this is done, that this is what it is, but I think that it is a valid point to think about when we start to think about the opposition that we face. The first one is, I think, so when it talks about how does opposition affect a believer, A is it's viewed and practiced as opposition. Now, opposition, I looked up, is prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment. I'm not saying that things in this world aren't oppressive to us. I'm saying this is how our attitude is. How do we view these things that happen to us? How come it is that you can have a Christian that has cancer and they don't view it as opposition, they view it as something else? Or you can have another Christian that has cancer and they view it very much as something that is a prolonged, cruel treatment from God. I think that is then how we start, how it changes, how the world gets in and how the devil gets in. When we look at it like that, I want you to think about it. Do we view it as oppression, as a prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment from God? The first one is, when I was thinking about this, is we start to question God's motives, His ability, and His faithfulness. Has that ever happened to anybody? It's happened to me. Yeah, it's happened to me. In that mindset, how could God do this to me? Not what is this about God, and how could He do this to me? How could He possibly make or let a 6-year-old have cancer? How could you do that?
How could a good God allow?
How could a good God allow that? Because I have taken my opposition of being sickness. And I now have made it oppression from God. And that's how I view him through the lens of that. So think about it. When you're questioning God's motives, his ability, and his faithfulness, I have been there. I've been there more than once, and I have to go back and I have to remember from the beginning. So just think about that. The second one is we have a weak or a non-existent kingdom view. So if we feel like something is oppressive, and that's partly why Linda, what she talked about last week, is so incredibly relevant, and we need to look at it, we need to think about it, we need to look at our lives and see how we can purge that, because all it's doing is stealing. It's stealing away from who we know God to be, from our peace and our love for one another. But the non-existent kingdom view, so many people and pastors are, in that video, we're talking about healing. They're talking about money. I like the one where the guy said, you better put your $1,000 in this plate today if you want to have your bills cleaned out tomorrow. I mean, he was buying his private...
to pay my bill.
Right. He was buying his private jet at the time, but he wanted... But do you see what happens in that? We're not looking at here anymore. We're like, well, I mean, that's a good deal. If I only have to give you $1,000 and my debt's paid,
Yeah.
you know, here's the thing though. That's not how God works, and that doesn't happen. Another very interesting thing I saw in there. We all know Benny Hinn, I think. You guys know that.
Oh, yeah.
And I always feel weird about calling people out. You know, you're like, I don't know, maybe, you know, God. Listen, that's blasphemy, guys. It's blasphemy, and it's sin, and it's wrong. When you tell the crippled children to hang out in the back because God ain't got your healing today, that's blasphemy. Okay, that's not the Christ we serve. So you need to call it what it is. It's not tolerant to say, well, I don't know, maybe you know, God's got a little something special for Benny and I ain't gonna say it. No, I'm sorry. His actions produce me to say, you are not in the will of God, buddy. Okay? When you can see these people who are sick, and he tells them, you need to stand to the side and pray for your miracle. It's not on the stage today. But this is the problem, okay? We get worked up. What can he give me here? What can he give me here that I can feel good, I can be healthy, I can be wealthy, because God wants that for you. That's not the case. Because why would God want that for you in a place that's not your home? It doesn't make any sense. So we need to think about that. We need to think about, and I know in the back of our minds too, we can think, well, that's for somebody else, right? I don't really believe that. It's not me. I know I'm not going to ask for any prayer or healing, because I know God's not like that. I did. Desperate times, when you feel it, we talked about in your own backyard. Wait a minute, whoa, let me see, wait, maybe God really will do that. Maybe I will deconstruct the character of God for what I need him to do for me. So we need to think about it. We need to be prepared. Thank God that his mercy allows us to work through those things, that he can shine a light into those areas, and we can grow more than we ever thought we could, because he is a good God. When those blinders are taken off our eyes and we really see how much he loves us and how much he cares for us. Thank God for that, because if it was true, I would be lost in a sea of mourning. And it's not so, because he is good, and we're going home. Okay, let's move on. We start to build a resentment for the things of God. And you know, what's interesting is I see this a lot in my nephew. I mean, I don't like to call people out, really, but you guys don't know my nephew. You're not going to meet him. That's okay. I love him dearly. He's my favorite nephew. I love him, but he is a whole bunch of wrapped up in the world. 5-6 years ago, he's teaching Bible study at the church. He grew up in church. You know, he had I thought, a very firm foundation. It doesn't mean just because they've heard the truth that they're going to stay in that. They have a choice to make, like we all do. But see, this growing resentment for the things of God. When my Laney left to be with the Lord, my brother-in-law, very short in that time, he also left. He had pancreatic cancer, and he died from it. God released him from his battle, just like my Laney. And that started to create a resentment in there. Why would God do that to such a godly man? Why would he do that? But then it started to trickle down. You know what? I don't know about that. I'm not sure then that God is not okay with homosexuality. You know why? Because God is a loving God. So I don't think I'm going to buy into that either. And you know what else? I do think that these policemen are out of hand. I do think that we should talk about defunding the police department. And I'm listening to him thinking, what is wrong with you? Not because of what where's the heart and the spirit of what you're talking about? Where's the Bible? Where does the holy God come into play in this? And that's the problem. He's not. He's not in it. He's not in his talk. He's not in his conversation. So instead of going for the truth, he has looked at all of this opposition as oppression, and he now is starting to build resentment for the things of God. And then the last one I have on here, which is also in our passage, is become enemies of the cross of Christ. I find that one very interesting. I was telling Linda about that. I think when we have a vision, does anybody want to, when we think about an enemy of the cross of Christ, what do you think about?
Satan.
Okay, Satan, right. When somebody's become an enemy of the cross of Christ, we think, ooh, there's a bad dude. These are bad dudes. But really, the enemies of the cross of Christ, even in that passage, they're talking about people we see every day. We see every day at church, we see them around, and they say, hashtag blessed, thank you, Jesus, you know, that we're good. But here's the thing. They hate the cost of the cross. It's not, they don't want to be Christ-like. We want the benefit, but we do not want that. We do not want the cost. We do not want to go back, and we do not want to look at what have I signed up for. I want to pretend that I want this benefit, but I don't want anything to do with the cost that he has for the cross and who I need to be. Those are the enemies of the cross of Christ. And let me tell you, they're going to hell. They are, because they don't love Jesus. They don't love Christ. Once again, and I'll say this, he is merciful and he is good. Until the last minute we have our last breath, he is reaching out and we have opportunity because he loves us. This is, you know, it's getting to a whole different conversation, but that's the truth. Right? Come on now.
Definitely in verse 19, below that verse in Philippians, it describes the enemies of the cross of Christ.
Yes.
And one of them is who set their minds on earthly things.
Yes.
So here we're talking about this earth not being our home. If we're setting our minds on earthly things, even Peter, when he said, no, that's not going to happen to you, Jesus, he even said, get behind me,
That's
Satan.
right.
So even we can be in a position to become an enemy of the cross when
Absolutely.
we set our minds on earthly things.
Absolutely. And Peter's a great example of that. Even he looked at opposition in two different ways, which we're about to discuss. But for the grace of God, we don't have to stay there. And that's a great point, Brandy, because we look at these things and they set their things on, who set their mind on earthly things. Does that seem like an enemy of the cross of Christ, or does it just seem like your average Christian?
Every one of the distortions we talked about last week were because there's something on this earth that they want to be able to add to the gospel,
Absolutely.
so that they can have it right here.
That's a great point. And when I was looking up, I YouTubed a lot of it. And when I was looking up opposition, because I was thinking, maybe somebody could say that's so good for me, and I'll just play that video. Then I don't have to do anything. When I was looking that up, it had Christianity and. So one of them was Christianity and abortion. Christianity, another one was homosexuality. Christianity and. So it had in other words, all of these arguments for why I can still be a Christian and. I thought that was very interesting. And another one, too, on that note, there was another pastor that I had kind of watched because he was loud, and I thought it was kind of cool. And he, the word that he said more than anything was you. You. Because then he was talking about, which then I turned it off, he said that Christ started a work that you get to finish.
Ooh. Whoa.
I can't finish any work that Christ has done. I can't do it. As a matter of fact, that's again a part of the problem, the distortion, the issue we have is because at some point we don't need him anymore.
We forget why he came to begin with.
That's exactly
When
right.
we forget that he said, it is finished.
That's exactly
And he
right.
didn't go, no, I've done my part, now you do yours.
Right. Well, that's what I had headphones on at the time. I was like, ooh, click. My daughter's like, what are you looking at? I'm like, girl, you don't know. All right, let's move on to the second one. So let's remember that, keep that in our mind, that we can view this opposition as oppression. But here's the other thing I think we can do, is it can be viewed and practiced as opportunity. Well, the first thing that we know is the opportunity that we have is life in Christ. We get to daily practice having life in Christ, and it's abundant. When he says that I have come to give you life abundant, does that mean abundant things?
No.
No. But why do we do that all the time? Why is that the thing when he says, girl, God has come to give you life abundant? You are going to have health and wealth, and you are going to be okay. And we might not say that like outright, like some of these other people, but we say it quietly. I'm gonna pray for you And not that we shouldn't pray, we should ask for healing, we should do all of those things. The problem is, and this was in the video, when we magnify the gift above the giver. And we say, I want, that's what I want, okay? And that's what starts to happen. But in the life, we are grateful that we get to live in the life of Christ. The opportunity, like Sue had said earlier, those things that he bestows upon us, we are able to give out. The comfort, the love, the joy, those are the things that we get to live in. And that sounds like a pretty good trade-off to me. I know in my life when I think I'll take it and I'll keep it, that's not joyful. That's not peaceful. Man, I gotta go. Okay. And then the other one, practices opportunity, open ears to hear. That was in Job. So he says he uses that oppression, he uses that feeling of that conflict for us to be able to hear him. And do we always is he always talking to us through our conflicts, through our struggles? Yes, he is. He's talking to us in everything. That he has that for us. Love, joy, peace, those things. So we know the story of Job, and he opens the ears to hear, and through that we're able to build and grow our faith, which is true. I can say that I've had way more faith because I have him. In awful circumstances. I don't know if it didn't work out for me, guys. It didn't work out in the world standards for my daughter. It didn't. But I have more faith now because I really know who God is. Absolutely. I know the truth now. So it builds and it grows our faith. It renews our need for discipleship. We need to think about that too. If you think, man, I don't know about these things. Not only, you need to get in the Word, or need to get somebody that can help you. I have help. Lord, no, I don't need help. I got lots of help. Where you go, I don't understand this. I don't see this. I'm struggling with this. Get yourself a friend. Get yourself a mentor that can help you, can work it out together. If you don't have a friend, I'll be your friend. And then I'll direct you to people that I talk to, that they know things. But that's a need for discipleship. If we're not here and we're not talking, we're not communicating in these groups, this is a God sent, a God given. In my life, I don't know how I did with that. I was dying. I might have been going to heaven by the skin of my teeth, but I was dying. And now, in the worst of circumstances and the things that have happened according to the world, I'm thriving in Him. But I got to do that every day. Okay. The third one is unification of the believers. Yeah, we see that a lot now, don't we? Yeah, that's a big one. We view to practice as opportunity. I think if we did that more as people and as a church, we're able to look at something and go, wait a minute. Instead, how can we come together on this? How can we come together as a people, as Christians that love the Lord? If the same Spirit is in me as in you, then we should be able to come together on this. So if we look at it through the eyes of opportunity, we'll be able to have unification of believers. And the last one is it emboldened us to speak and to share the gospel. That's in 1 Thessalonians 2:2. Galatians 6:14, the world has been crucified to me. And that's amazing, because we think about it. And I just want you to think about it. How many times do you share your faith? If we looked at this as an opportunity, honestly, these things that have happened have given me way more opportunity to be able to share my faith and to be able to, for people to see my life, and hopefully that together as we're working and we're striving towards Christ, that we can see Him through our circumstances. But that's something that I think that we need to do more of. I need to do more of. To be able to speak my faith and tell the gospel. Because if this is true, and this is the good news, and we have it, then we need to tell it. We need to speak it. We need to share it. And so all of these things, so that's kind of what I'm thinking is a challenge, definitely for myself, that these are things that we're able to maybe look at a little bit differently. I know even in my life, there was a challenge that I thought, I am doing nothing with. I am in the total right. I am not doing it. I finally stood up for myself, and then I'm doing this. I'm like, oh my man. Okay, all right. Because as long as it's up to me, there's the Bible verse. Where's it at, Brandy? I'm thinking, as long as it depends on me, I'll be at peace with all people. So
It's in
looking at
Romans.
this,
It's in Romans.
Romans 12. That might be.
Yes.
As long as it depends on me to be at peace with all people.
Yeah,
So anyway, but that also, through that was, it let me shine my light. It let me shine my light a little bit further. And that's what we need, because He is worth it. He is mighty, He is glorious, He loves us, and our life in Him is so much more fruitful and joyful. So I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and do your group questions, and you've got about 25 minutes to do that. I want you to read both of those passages, and kind of see, I hope that you get to see kind of where I was going with that, but you guys can go ahead and get started. Romans 12:18. What does it read it, Sheree?
If possible, so far as it depends on you, be at peace with all.
Be at peace with all men, as far as it depends on you. I think we need Christ for that.
Apparently, as soon as there's gonna be time, that it's not possible. Possible? Your part, yes. You're not gonna get that.